So the first part of doing any kind of repetitive work is creating a jig, and that's what we're going to do now. I just have a kind of random piece of 3mm basswood plywood that I am just using. If I needed a bunch of these or I would use a bigger piece. It's just happened to be a cutoff. The first thing I'm going to do is create the outside of the jig itself. So I like to move things to the red layer when I'm going to cut. And this will be the outside, and then I'm going to go and add a piece of text that shows how big it is, or shows me, not how big it is, but shows me what this jig is actually for, because I've got a pile of these and it's easy to get confused. So it's eraser jig. Turn that to engrave, and then I like to put all of my engraving on the blue layer. So I have everything separated. Red for cut, blue for engrave. Just stick that up there out of the way. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a box that is going to be used to hold the actual eraser. So I'm going to turn off the synchronization between the width and height, and I'm going to enter the exact size of my eraser. And I'm going to cut it, turn it to cut, and also move it to the red layer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to replicate these. So go to the grid array. I am going to go to 4 or 5 columns, depending on what I can get to fit. A 5mm spacing in between. This should be plenty of room, I think. So we did 5 columns, and let's do 6 rows, maybe 7 rows. Okay, I'm going to do 7 rows. I'm going to change the X spacing to 4 so I can get everything in there. This was really kind of light. You may want to, if you're using this a lot, I would go with fewer rows or a bigger piece of wood and do that, because that's just a little bit light. And then again, I'm going to put everything on the same layer, cut. And that is the basic jig that we have. And we'll just cut this out, and then we'll see how it works in the next video. So as you can see, we've got the entire jig cut out, and then I've removed the excess and put it back into place. I'm using a third-party honeycomb here, as you can probably see. So got it in place, and now what we have to do is we have to figure out exactly where our boxes go. Remember, the camera, while close, is not exact. So we're going to have to do a couple things here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these and I'm going to group them just to make it easier, and then I'm going to copy and paste it, and that's going to give me a different set. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to move the initial group out of the way. Actually, you know what, let me do that. Let me just move the copy out of the way, and this is going to be wherever I want it. Okay, so I'm going to ungroup it. And then what I'm going to do, and this is kind of odd, I admit, but this works for me and it works every time. So you see these little black things here. These are kind of automotive clips that hold things on your car, like panels and things like that. That comes with the the honeycomb here. So I've got it in a place where I know it's never going to move. It's always going to be in the same place every single time because I cut it on this thing. So I know where everything is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my laser. I'm going to actually take the jig out. I'm actually going to put blue tape over the entire thing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to score all of these boxes, and not all of them, just a few at a time. And I'm going to make sure that that box is exactly over the hole for the eraser. And again, I do this on all my jigs. That's why sometimes if you see some of my jigs, you'll see these random square lines everywhere. That's because I've actually done the same process on those. And the idea here is I need to make sure where it's going to be located, because these boxes, while we won't print them again, they're actually going to be used to line things up. So generally what I'll do is I'll take the jig out, put blue tape on everything, and then I'll put it back in, put the clips in, and then I will pretty much turn everything output off. So I'll just select everything, say I do not want it output, and then what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll pick the first one, and then I'll run a score on this, and then I'll look at it and I will adjust the location. But be careful here. When you adjust the location, you're adjusting the location of everything. So once I know, okay, well, I've got to go 5 mils left and 4 mils up, and I'll select everything, and then I will just use the control arrow key to move them up and right and left to get it where I want it. Then I'll go back to the one, I'll do it again, and when I get that one in place, I'll go to others. So maybe the second one and third one in the middle. When I did this tactile test here, I did the second one to make sure it worked, and then I did, I think, the third one in the middle, and one in the far right corner. And then once I did those and make sure it's hitting exactly, then I knew what I was doing was going to work. And so what I did is just ran those, verified everything worked, and then at that point I can start adding my text. Okay, so we've got the grid going, everything's good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to not group them, but I am going to lock them. So just right click and set lock. And I have the object list open, as you see. Now you see it locks beside everything. And the cool things about this, the reason this is, and again, I don't know if this was in xTool Creative Space XCS 1.1 or was or was not, but it isn't in the 2.0 beta that I'm using here. And what this does is it prevents you from changing anything. And that's really cool, because what that allows you to do is use it as a reference, which is what we're doing here, but not worry about you accidentally changing things. I didn't even know about this until I was watching Sam from Samcraft make a similar thing, and I was like, oh, look at that. I wish I'd known that before. Okay, so we're going to go create a label for our eraser here. Okay, it's a bit large. It's at 72 point. That's an inch. So I'm going to do it down to 14 point. And I'm going to choose engrave, and then I'm also going to move it to the blue layer, because that is the layer that I like to use for engraving. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it centered here. Now the way that I put those in there, these erasers, is they're cut at an angle. And so what I did is I put it at an angle with the right side being the pointing angle, the left side being the slope to the left. I'll show it to you later just so you understand. So anyway, so I'm going to center this on that, and now again, don't worry about where the jig is and locate in reference to these boxes. It should be in the right place if you did everything you were supposed to earlier. And so all you're doing here is when you move it, you get okay, I've got a vertical center, and if I move it to the left, I've got a left center. There you go. That's what we want right there. So I'm going to put that in there, and then I'm going to duplicate these, and the same thing. There's vertical or horizontal, too high. Okay, that is actually referencing off the one beside it, which is fine. I think that's fine. Let me see. Oops, there we go. That's what I want. And then basically you just do this over and over. So how I did it before, I didn't really do a good job, to be quite honest, when I did my production run. Some of these were not lined up because I was using this thing here, and if you look at this, it doesn't exactly look like it's lined up properly. So okay, that's lined up that way. Hang on. Oh, come on. That still doesn't look correct. Okay, there we go. So anyway, so what you'll do is you'll copy these, fill them all in. Yes, it's kind of tedious. And then what we'll do is just line them up vertically and horizontally within the box. So again, you have to know where the edges of the actual edges of the eraser itself, because the box you're putting it in is the size of the eraser. That is not actually the printable surface of the eraser, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so once you copy all that, you're ready to go. So just to load up, I would just load up a test and just print one of them, and then make sure it prints the way you want, and then just do all your copies here, and after you do that, you're ready to go. So let's go back and talk about real quick the alignment and stuff like that. So this is kind of tedious. So let's unlock these, and with the object list still showing, what you can do is you can highlight one and then scroll down to the bottom of that list and just hold your shift key and hit the mouse button, and then right click and say unlock, and that will unlock all of them. Now at this point, again, you can still move them around, but what you can do is you can select one and then select your text and then select the center, and that moved it down just a hair in that case there. Actually, that one and then that. Align center, that one was fine. That and that. That line center. This may be a little bit more efficient than what I was just showing. I wanted to show both ways. The only caveat to this is you got to be very, very careful you don't move your box, because your box is your reference. But unfortunately, like I was mentioning, if it's locked, you can't. You can visually see it, hopefully line up, but you can't interact with it. You can't select it. And since I can't select it, I can't select it plus the text. So just a thing to think about there. So the last thing we have to do is actually engrave. So this is the cool part. So I'm going to click the blue layer, which is going to select all of my text. And actually, stop before I do that, I've got to change this. So I'm going to change my material to user defined. I am going to set my, I'm going to set my height to be 8 millimeters. That is the size of my eraser. It's on a triangular prism. That's correct. I'm going to select the blue layer. Then I'm going to select engrave, show this. I'm going to change it to 80, 60, one pass, 100 lines per centimeter. I think that's it. Make sure those are all done. And then I think I only have one selected right now, which should be fine. Go to process. It's going to print off one label or one eraser. That's what I want to see. So I'm going to click the start button. Go hit the laser, and we'll be back.
So we're back at the laser. Here is my eraser, and what I was describing earlier is make it point that way, and that will give you, when you center it in the jig, it will print in this area from here to here. What you want. Also a good thing to do, I noticed, and it's probably just my machine, it's kind of dusty. I just blow it out. Make sure that they're clean, because they get junk and they get around. Also make sure that they are lined up with the top left edge. So that's what we want, top left edge. Do that, and then I will be back in a second. We'll look at the results. Well, we're done. And I'm just going to take the knockoff of a magic eraser and just wipe it off. And that is it. Now, who can spot the weird thing in the picture? Anybody? Anybody? Where do those two vertical lines come from? Well, they came from a scoring line for this grid here, which I think is very interesting because it did not show a scoring line on our preview. So I don't know exactly how that happened. I gotta go back and look at that. But anyway, that is it. Pretty simple. Like I said, it's multi-center. You can get into which you want to get better, but that is it. The darker colors, of course, show up better than the lighter colors. Some of the white, the yellow, pink did not do very well. Green did not do very well. That's basically it. So again, this is for my wife's class at her teenage. So we got a whole bag of these, and that's how we do it here. So more back to school stuff coming. Thanks.